Welcome to our Ask a Professional GovCon panel. I'm Carrie Milligan. I'm the Director of Career Services. Delighted to welcome you here today. I just want to let you know that we're very honored to have Eagle Bank as our sponsor. So that's where the good food came from. So help yourself. We also have a wonderful panel here to kind of help you kind of figure out what GovCon is all about. And so they are here because they want to help you and answer your questions. So make sure you get all your questions out. And our wonderful moderator today is Sophia Marshall. Sophia she works in the School of Business Office of Career Services, and she is our GovCon Job Development Specialist. So she is a specialist in this area, and we're thrilled to have her here today. So I'm going to turn it over to Sophia, who will moderate the panel. We want to thank you all for coming on this bright, sunny fall morning. And that is not Jeff Howe from Carnegie Company. Yeah. Substitution, and we're thrilled to have Erin here. So I'm going to turn it over now.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Oh, come on. Better than that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. All right. Like Carrie said, it's a wonderful, beautiful morning, and I'm very, very, very excited to be here moderating this panel, which I think is a very, very, very important topic. Whether you know it or not, how much do you think the GovCon industry is worth in this area? Anyone want to take a stab at that? What do you think? $1 trillion. Okay. Pretty good. Anyone else? Okay. So I'd like to say Dr. John Hillen, I've heard him say many times that the GovCon industry is actually worth $500 billion. Okay, and it's its own separate vertical, so it's very good that you're here today to learn more about it, especially from our distinguished panelists today. So the first thing I'm going to do is go down the line and have each panelist introduce themselves, tell them a little bit about their background in GovCon and what they do, and then from there we'll jump into questions. All right, first I have Erin Ogburn from Kearney & Company. Erin?
Thanks, Sophia. Hi, everybody. My name is Erin Ogburn. I'm with Kearney & Company. I've been with Kearney & Company since 2005, so about 13 years. My role within Kearney, I'm our Chief People Officer and a partner within the firm. So I really oversee all of our people services and all the things that we do to support our employees and keep our people happy. And part of that is also all of our recruitment efforts. And so I'm excited to be here with Mackenzie, who's also from Kearney & Company, who is going to be leading our college recruiting efforts here in the near future. I began my career in government contracting at Booz Allen as an intern, and then joined full-time. I worked there for a couple years and then went on to work in higher education, actually, and received my master's degree, but still focused in the career services area and helped students get jobs and write resumes and those types of things. And then I returned back to Kearney & Company, who is a government contractor, and we focus mainly in the financial services area, and we hire I'd say mostly accounting students, but we also do hire some IT students as well, and then occasionally a business or finance, but that is often rare for us. And we do audit, accounting work, IT audit work, and then consulting work as well.
Great. And next, Sarah Shuey.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Shuey. I'm a director, with KPMG and the Management Consulting Financial Management Practice. I am a December 2002 grad from George Mason, and I immediately started my career with KPMG after graduating in June 2000. Not immediately. I took the CPA exam. I was an accounting major, but started in June 2003 with KPMG. I was in audit because that's what all the professors told you to do when you graduated with an accounting degree, and I stayed there for about 13 and a half years. Probably about 10 years into my career, I wanted to do something a little different and started doing advisory work and just switched in January to the management consulting practice. So I've been with the firm, I guess now about 14 and a half years was the number we came up with. But happy to answer any questions. Focused all my career on federal. I've done some commercial and nonprofit work in both audit and advisory, but mainly most of my career focused in federal. So we are a government contractor as well.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. And Deb Beckworth.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us here today. I hope we get a lot of questions from the field. I'm with Decisive Point Consulting Group. Right now, I'm a private consultant, and I do independent consulting for independent clients through Decisive Point. But my career started basically back in 1979 when I graduated from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. I was commissioned in the United States Army and spent 27 years on active duty, retiring as a colonel in 2006. I spent my entire career in the intelligence industry, and I did assignments all around the world, supporting missions on every continent except Antarctica. And I hope to visit there as a tourist someday. But I've led very large organizations in the Army. I held brigade command of the Army's SIGINT Brigade up at Fort Meade, Maryland. It's like a 1,700-person military organization. But I've done tours with very tactical units, commanded at 2nd Infantry Division in Korea along the DMZ back in the mid-'90s. So needless to say, the current things going on in Korea have piqued my interest from that background. But also I've done tours at the Pentagon, have worked on a joint staff, and I've led multinational units as well and had several assignments with NATO. So a very, very broad and varied and international career. After retiring in 2006, I came back to this area. Both of my children were actually surprisingly born and raised here and went to Paul VI High School, so I have a long history in the Washington, D.C. area. So I settled here because of my children. I did spend 6 years away from my children before they were in college. So that's something to think about as well if you're thinking about doing the military route. But I became a defense contractor, especially coming from the intelligence field. This is the best place to go, where you're the most marketable. And so for the last 11 years, I have had corporate management, profit and loss operations, and program management positions in various capacities at very small companies, privately owned, as well as large companies like BAE Systems, where I was a business developer for their global analysis organization, and have also run a profit and loss organization of about 120 people. So over the years, I built a really good track record. I think a lot of it stems from the military/government background of building strong teams and high performance. And I have a history right now, a track record of winning over $40 billion worth of contracts for the companies that I've worked at. So with that, I will pass it over.
I don't know how I can follow that.
Great. Thank you, Deb. Tabitha?
My name is Tabitha Chandler. I'm the CEO of Green Cyber Group. It's actually my 6th personal corporation that I've had in the last 23 years. I like to grow them, sell them, move on. But for my customers, I've also created over 86 corporations nationwide in pretty much every government vertical known. Our company, Green Cyber Group, we're national security consultants and cybersecurity consultants for medium and small-sized businesses looking to protect themselves from insider threats, terrorist issues, and other national security-related clearance issues. I've worked for over 25 years in defense and in national security, from everything from creating facility clearances, protecting very large-scale national installations, to writing over 40 government security policies that have been enacted into government function. I really enjoy working for the United States government, but not necessarily as a government employee. So I hope to take some really good questions about working for the government and bolstering a career inside of potentially consulting or consulting companies.
Great. Thank you, Tabitha. And last, Scott.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here. My name is Scott Hogue. I'm a director with CGI Federal here in Fairfax. I've been with CGI now for 5 years, actually 5 years today. Is my anniversary with the company, so glad for that. I've got about 30 years in industry, probably half in the federal space, and I spent about half that time doing non-federal things, including I was the CIO of a 30,000-member nonprofit organization that was barbershop singers, so did some real interesting things with that. I started out at TRW, which is now part of Northrop Grumman, doing IT work for the Air Force. Went through a few other small companies, ended up at SRA for a while, which is now part of CSRA. And then about the last 10, 12 years, I've been focused on actually, I come from an IT background. I have a computer science degree from Virginia Tech. But about the last 10 years, I've been more on the business side of things, focused on business capture, which is kind of the back half of the business development cycle. And focused for CGI at the Department of Homeland Security, leading our effort for a very large cybersecurity program that DHS is leading. You, if you've been around, might have heard of, called Continuous Diagnostics and Mitigation. I'm currently the technical lead for the credential management program for that CGI won about a year ago. So I'm kind of eating my own dog food for a while. And just real happy to be here. We'll answer whatever questions you guys have. I've been around the block, done a lot of things, so great to talk.
All right. So thank you very much, panelists, for introducing yourselves. And welcome everybody else who came in during our introductions here. The very first question that I kind of want to ask, which I think everyone in this room wants to know, is what is government contracting, GovCon? It's a whole big industry. So I'm curious to know what your different thoughts are. We'll start with Erin.
So Carney & Company is a CPA firm, which is why we hire many accountants. And we are unique, very unique, in that our clients are all within the federal space. So they are all federal agencies. It could be state and cabinet level. We work with the military, Army, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard. And so 100% of our work is in that federal space for our entire firm. And that's really what puts us in that government contracting space. We feel that is a great business area for us. And as a CPA firm, it certainly sets us apart in that there are really only a handful in the country of CPA firms that just 100% focus on that federal space. So that's really kind of what makes us unique in the GovCon federal space.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I don't know that I can define GovCon.
Yeah, I don't know if I can define it either.
I mean, GovCon is anything that the federal government wants but doesn't want to hire an employee to do. So certainly in this marketplace, we're seeing a lot of accounting and finance and IT initiatives, especially as Department of Defense is trying to get audit ready. They're looking for people to not only audit them, but also tell them, how to get audit ready. There are a lot of new initiatives around cyber. So you've heard a lot of people saying cyber. I've seen proposals come out recently where they're looking for something called people and change. Yep. Come in and tell us how our organization is duplicative, not structured well, give us training, help us with our HR practices. I've seen plenty of contracts coming out looking for people to do medical research, for people to do all kinds of anything. So it is anything that you want it to, anything that the government wants it to be, I guess.
Goods and services?
Yeah, goods and services. Supply chain management is another big one where they're trying to make sure that anything coming through the supply chain hasn't been compromised or sold off to other governments or stolen by other governments. And so you might be, good grief, a bolt manufacturer in Nebraska. Well, now you have this new requirement to make sure your supply chain is secure all the way up to, the Navy's DDG 51 or whatever ship it is that's come out. So it's anything, really, that the government wants.
I think it's good to think of government contracting as a sector of business. It's its own sector, and it has many, many domains and functional areas. And as a separate sector of business, just as Sarah has said, you can do anything. There's finance, there's resource management, there's HR, there's intelligence, like my background, there's logistics, security, cyber, and the list goes on and on and on. Think about every single type of business that is even out there in the commercial world, and it fits within government contracting. The government even has daycare centers, and they run schools abroad. So, you can be a teacher and be in, the government system. So, think of the, working for the government as a contractor as, there are no walls, there are no boundaries. You can find just about any type of, operation or functional area or interest that you might want to pursue and go into.
You want to keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the way I would look at it as well is it's a structure. And if you want to engage the government is wanting to procure goods and services from companies that they do not want to hire people to do. If you look at it like that, you can then set up a corporation or work for a company that has decided to do work within the government. But they, too, have to comply with the rules and regulations to be able to take and do work with the government. So they have to set up their corporate structure properly. They have to hire people properly. They have to write proposals for job opportunities that come out in the form of scopes of work from the government. And we have to do a lot of writing. We do lots of writing. And we do lots of research on those government agencies or organizations so we know who they are, what they do, what their goals are, what their budgets are, and then from a technical standpoint, how we can provide a service that we have experience in to them at a good price to answer the mail, is what we call it, to write a good, solid proposal so that we can win against other competition that also want the job. It's a very competitive market because people get very good at what they do and they get very good at writing proposals, and sometimes that's good and bad for the government. But pretty much any service sector is possible. She's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah, the way that I look at this, it's a little bit similar to what Sarah said, but really for the people that are contracting for the government are doing the things that are not inherently governmental. Things like making policy or, doing that actual decision-making things. We're in typically more support kind of roles. We may come in and be the folks that write the software that helps the government go and make decisions, but we're not actually making the decisions. We may go and provide the administrative services that they need for their offices to go and run, or to run the computer systems that the government needs to go and run. So it's really all of that stuff that's outside or beyond just that actual real core government stuff. You can probably find a contract somewhere that is going and doing that kind of stuff.
And I want to point out, it's not just services either, right? So the government procures goods.
Sure.
I mean, General Dynamic,
Ships.
any of those are also
Build
considered.
stuff.
Yeah.
Build stuff, whatever it is. Right?
Yeah.
Whatever the big.
Yeah, the government doesn't build things. We build things for them.
Awesome. Okay, so that's a very good start there. I heard a lot of conversation around like procurement, people services, that type of thing. In particular, a question that we always get from our students is, where do they find these jobs, and what skills do they have to have for these jobs? So maybe we'll start with skills first, and then where to look. Anybody want to jump in?
Sure. There's a lot of, in terms of finding kind of the opportunities that are out there in the government space. There's a lot of open forums and services that you can look at, like Deltec GovWin is one that, all the contracts out. There's FedBiz Jobs, I think is.
FedBiz Ops.
That's right. FedBiz Ops is one that you can look at, that you can go and see the kinds of contracts that the government's putting out and which departments are going and putting them out. There's a lot of, I'm spacing on them. There's a lot of those like that. So you Google them and get. And from a skills standpoint, there's almost anything really that you can go and do that the government somewhere is going to need. There's certain things that there's a lot of need right now. I know I'm focused very much on cyber kinds of things. A lot of need for cyber. Please study cyber. There's a lot of need for that. But gosh, I mean, from accounting to development and all kinds of stuff, really, it's hard to say, okay, these kinds of skills to go on, because there is such a broad breadth of things that you're going.
You can also, you should start, even though you might not be job hunting yet, start looking at websites like usajobs.gov,
Yeah.
clearancejobs.com.
Clearance Jobs is a
Even
good one.
Indeed.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Look at those sites. And like last night, I actually got on USA Jobs and I just typed in the word finance in Washington, D.C. And, came up with, probably because I didn't differentiate grade levels and things like that, but like 7 jobs popped up immediately. They ranged in salary from 64 to about 112,000. They were at all kinds of different government organizations, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Education, things like that. So, just start looking at those and reading the descriptions. And, but I would say no matter what job, make sure that you're tech savvy, you're familiar with maybe the software that's used in your particular field, that sort of thing. But also, start networking. You don't have to wait till you're in a job to start networking. That's super important, and especially in this area, there's all kinds of organizations, professional organizations you can go ahead and join, like the Young AFCEANs, that's the Armed Forces Communications and Electronics Association. They have a sidebar organization for younger people, college students, and also, look for those internships. And by doing internships while you're in college, that'll give you exposure to the kinds of work that, you maybe would be doing in the future, and you could find out if you like it or not. Maybe you want to change sectors or something like that, and you can figure that out before you're, all invested later in life and things like that. So, there's a lot of things you can do to find out about the kinds of skills that you need.
And I would just say, don't underestimate the skills that you hear about all through college. Communication, writing. Those basic skills are really going to carry you to get that internship and to get that first job and through your career. And you'll continue to enhance those skills, but you really, to have a solid base, as they said, for example, with writing, I mean, that is super important. So don't underestimate the importance of those kind of basic skills that may not be brought up as often, especially as you progress in your college career. Continue to really work on those skills, because you will need them and you will use them, and it will surprise you when you graduate how quickly you begin using those types of things. On a separate kind of note, the other thing I wanted to say, and I think most of you probably know this, but from a contractor standpoint, for those of you who are looking for internships and jobs, remember, when you're applying to a contractor, you're going to be applying to a company. So you can look at the government sites to get ideas, but if you want to work for a contractor, you're not going to apply to the government. You're going to apply to a contractor who is working for the government. And when I've done these types of panels and things before, I've definitely seen kind of confusion about that. So I just wanted to be clear that, when we say to get out there and look at those opportunities, definitely do that. But remember, if you want to work for a contractor, you're not going to apply to the government. Does that make sense?
And that's a really, really, really good conversation.
The usajobs.gov site, because it has the gov, that is a government job. But you can read those jobs and see what, get a feel for what they're doing. But then the other sites like Indeed and clearancejobs.com, those are jobs with contractors, with companies, not government jobs.
And with that conversation there, you're talking about like working with, let's see, the organization where you go to work every day, and then the organization that you're paid from, which could be the prime contractor or subcontractor. Is anyone in here familiar with those terms? Have you heard those before? Okay. So I just want to speak a little briefly about that, kind of what the differences are and how that works.
Well, I'm very familiar with that, just because I've been in companies where I've run business units, and the business unit, the people in the business unit are out executing the contracts, maybe within, like, for example, I was an account manager at a...
It's like getting to meet special people, going to special events, doing special things as a way to say thank you for all the hard work you do. So, you you can look at it from a very broad perspective, and it can get very minuscule on a day-to-day basis. But there are rewards, no matter what scale you're looking for. And the other thing is that there are jobs, lots of opportunities, and good pay and wages, great benefits, travel opportunities, all those things. And so, and it's an honor to get a security clearance, right? I mean, those are honors. Those are things that you should be proud of and accomplishments that you and your families want to make. And so our industry allows for all of that, which is definitely cool. And it's amazing for people like us to see new college graduates come in and do well and succeed and have great reputations and receive awards from the government. That's something else. Our employees receive actual government awards. So there's a lot to be seen and done and learned about, and you have the opportunity.
And I think a lot of people off campus often say, I don't want to do government because I like to travel. Or I like to do rotations. The government is global, right? I don't even live in D.C., so it doesn't mean that you're going to be in D.C. forever.
Yeah.
We all have clients, I'm guessing, that take our employees worldwide, whether it's USAID, whether it's State Department, whether it's, you name it. I mean, we could sit here for hours, but and if that's an interest of yours, then ask those questions in the interview process.
And the federal government is in every state, every large metropolitan area, so you can get your foot in the door, locally at FEMA, and then go anywhere in the country and even abroad with FEMA, DHS,
NASA.
And that's one of the things. If you go to a big company, like when I was at BAE Systems, 110,000, they had jobs on every continent, and they were in like 45 of the U.S. states. So. If you want to do that, be able to travel and stay within a company, or big system integrators, have a lot of those kind of opportunities.
Yeah, I was 21 and started my first government contracting job in Saudi Arabia. So that was my first real even job out of college. Yeah. And I was in Saudi Arabia.
Wow. So. Great. Okay. So now I want to open this up for student questions.
So a lot of the advice that I get from the people who have been advising me career-wise, the advice usually involves getting some sort of clearance, TSSCI or something of the sort. And when they give me the advice, it appears like a bit of a catch-22. You need the clearance to get the job, but you need the job to get the clearance. Assuming that my record is clean and I have nothing to hide, can you give me an idea of what the landscape kind of looks like for getting a clearance? Is that something I get when I get hired? Like, how does that
So let it be a conversation opener. I would suggest on your resumes, if you do not have a personal clearance, but you feel like you could get one, at the very bottom, put clearance, eligible, U.S. citizen. Yeah. Because, one, you're telling people, I know what a clearance is, and I think I'm eligible. But if you say something like eligible, then they'll also know he doesn't have it, but he's eligible. Yeah. And it sounds like the silliest thing, but as I'm reading your resume, I'm going to say, he's young, he just graduated, he's got some good skills, he's had some internships. Oh, we like him, right? Let's bring him in for an interview. He's pretty eligible. Now I'm going to give you that opportunity. If I'm hiring, though, and I'm telling you, I can't hire you for a paycheck until you get a clearance. But what I'm going to do is give you an offer letter. You're going to know your job title. You're going to know once you get the clearance successfully, then I will start you within 30 days, and that's actually the law. So it's written that way. I will bring you on, and you will start. So if you can get your paperwork in, and I can process you, it might take 6 months, it might take 8 months. I need to know you're going to be available. I need to know you're going to stick with me. You're not going to job hop around. And I'm probably going to make you sign a little something that says when I get you your clearance, you're going to stay on my contract for at least 1 year. Because I'm going to hire you with the hiring agreement. A lot of companies do that in this area. Because I want to make sure that if I'm taking that chance on you, you're not going to take my hiring bonus, give me a couple of months, and then shoot out to either my competition or to someone else going, I got a TSSCI. Well, I just paid for that. And I just spent all the time grooming you, getting you on the contract, getting you some experience under your belt, and bam, you're out the door. That's what I'll protect myself from that.
Because the clearance
we'll give you a chance.
The clearance goes with you.
Yeah.
And
Right.
you know better than I do. I've heard that they cost like $1,000 to $100,000.
Oh, they can be
So-
incredibly
Look,
expensive.
And here I'll make the process of getting a clearance for a company is free. Okay? It is also free to you. If anyone ever tells you you have to pay to get a clearance, I think you should call law enforcement immediately
Yeah.
because it's a scam and it's
Yeah.
illegal, okay?
Yeah.
Or call me and
That's a
I'll
good
make
point.
sure to call the people properly who need that, which I've done. But the company is investing in you. So they're investing in the FSO, who is required to meet you, greet you, work you through the process, work with you over time. It's the hiring people and the HR people who went through the trouble to hire you and interview you and get you to that point. It's the people for the program managers who are working the contracts, who are trying to fill the positions that they need. It all costs money. The average TSSCI clearance costs the company about $18,000. Now, it's not in real cost money, but it is in real cost money in us being paid every day by the company and the wheels of the corporation turning on a day-to-day basis. So that's the cost.
Yeah, it's very.
So a question I have then, if let's say he got the job and he left, are you going to make him pay the $18,000?
No, there's that.
No.
That would
That
be
doesn't
illegal.
work. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Honestly,
that
that's
part's
illegal
legal.
under the FAR.
See,
That's
and-
illegal under facility clearance requirements. I mean,
I did not
that
know
person
that.
could go to the government and say,
Yeah.
"Company X made me pay out of something. They
Wow.
held it over
Yeah.
my head." It goes with you.
No, but if
can
you
do a
gave them a
bonus.
$10,000
Yeah.
hiring
Bonus.
bonus,
Yes,
Bonus,
now,
right.
yes, I would take that.
Yeah.
Now that's
that
something,
would
but
go-
that would be
yeah.
contractual
That's a
and in
contractual
writing. Yeah,
agreement,
so-
right.
Sounds like the kind of behavior that's in conflict with eligibility for the clearance.
It is, and that's your trustworthiness and.
Okay, great.
The one quick point you mentioned that have on there is put your citizenship on your resume.
Put it at the top, not the bottom.
Yeah,
Right.
I would put that.
I have read
put that.
thousands of resumes, and I'm always looking. They don't say if they're a citizen. Put it right at the top.
It-
if you're eligible and if you're a U.S. citizen, put that
Yeah,
right at the
or
top.
whatever citizenship you
Yeah.
are, put that on there. It will help everybody out because we don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste our time.
That's right.
And if it's something that's like, I know, on this particular, and a lot of the government, if it's not cleared work, and there's a lot of government work that doesn't require a clearance and doesn't necessarily require you to be a U.S. citizen. Certain departments, like Homeland Security that I work with, and maybe DoD and some of the others, certainly the intel community, want only U.S. citizens to work with them. But there's a lot of the government, Department of State, USAID, a lot of it.
H-1B visas are
Yeah,
hireable
do
by the
not.
government.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to be a U.S. citizen, but please just put it on your resume so that we can filter out real quickly
And you still may
get
even
you with
go
the
through
right.
a background check with a visa.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's a different kind of background check.
But also, if you go to companies, your mid-tier or your bigger companies that have more contracts, you may be able to get into a company on an unclassified project. And then while you're there, they'll process you. And so you're in a job, you've got a salary, you're not in a waiting mode. And then maybe when the day comes, you can then move over to another contract that they want to move you into where a clearance is required.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Like, CGI Federal is about 7,500 people, something like that. And if we get a great resume in for a contract, you come apply for a certain position on that. It's like, wow, I really like this resume. It's not necessarily a great fit for us. We'll feed that over to another contract or another part of the company. It's like, hey, you might want to look at this person. I know you're looking for this particular skill set or background. It's like, go check this out. And, we'll pass those around.
And, we're a 700-person company, so we're talking much different size than a few of these. And we hire people without clearances and then run them through the clearance process. And so that's, for example, when I talked about earlier, we hire people in the fall who don't start till May or June. That's partly the reason. Part of it is that our industry is so competitive, but part of it is that we want you to be able to get that clearance, and that gives us the time to do that. So we would extend your offer. We would hope we would expect you to accept that offer in the fall, and then you would start in the spring, or really late spring, early summer. So that's just part of what we build into our hiring process.
So as somebody who
Perfect.
doesn't have a clearance, if I see something that says TSSCI required, should I still avoid those, or should I?
I would
I would
them.
avoid.
Avoid.
Well, and those TS clearances and TSSCIs, they take a long time.
They take a long
It's
time.
like
So-
it can take 18 months, even
Yeah.
2 years if you have a lot of foreign connections. Because an investigator has to go on the ground and research all the things
Yeah.
that you've put in your document.
So well, I don't want to chew up all of the Q&A time, but so is it like a progression where I can get part of the clearance and then upgrade the clearance?
So you go in for a collateral clearance first, confidential, secret, or top secret. That's the base of a clearance. Then after that, you have specialty accesses, and those are additional background reviews for those, and they add up over time.
And they can do an interim first that is hopefully less, and then you'll get your full clearance. Some contracts will actually let you start work while that interim is in process. It all depends on the specifics of the contract.
Perfect. Okay.
That you can't just say, I want a TSSCI. Like, there has to be a need.
There has to be a
Yeah.
need.
A need to know.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I can't just give you one if I don't have a contract that requires it.
Wonderful. So I want to go ahead and thank our panelists. And what I'm going to do, though, is allow everybody, we're going to just do some networking. So we're going to have our students come up and speak with you. All right. Thank you very much for coming this morning. And again, the floor is open. Thank you.
There were a couple questions in the back.
Yeah, in the back.
If you have them
Come
up,
on.
we'll see if we can answer that.
We're not that scary.
That's right. You might look scary, but we're not that scary.
How's the experience working with a team since you're going to be there for limited time or,
No, good questions, and they apply to everyone, so everyone
how's
needs to know the
experience?
answers. And it's very confusing. I mean, the clearance process, is confusing. But if you're going in for like a secret level
Working with them for a while. Like, have you ever been?
So it's like you're
my
going
whole
on
life.
a government site and you're just integrating into a new
I don't know,
team.
it's somewhere
and you
between
might be
a
there
month
short
to
time.
3 months.
That happens to all of us all the time. Communication skills and all of that. You just have to be ready to do your job.
Do the best that you can.
Who's your
Be
mentor?
friendly. Just think of it like if you were in school and you go, like when you came to college, you had to meet new kids, new friends when you went to high school. It's kind of like that. And just try to see how things are done.
And it can be scary. I mean, I've been totally there, but you just have to say, what are my job duties? Who do I report to, and what do you expect of me? And just kind of jump in, and you get to know people, and you get to know what other people's questions and things like that.
No, I would put never so green, obviously, but I would definitely put U.S. citizenship. I mean, you can definitely put that on.
And security clearance eligible.
Yeah, security clearance eligible.
He said time's off. So I said that.
Oh, sure. At companies, they'll have a benefit package. Every company's a little different. But like all the federal holidays you usually have off, you might get anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks of vacation or 5 days to start with. Yeah. And you'll have like health care.
And some of those jobs, I mean, yes, there are like during the summer.
Yeah, when they're saying it's an SF-85, it's like a
That
10-hour
job is only
process
4
of
or
you
5
putting
months
things
long.
now into a computer.
No, it comes normally with benefits and salary and a package.
Irrespective of the contract.
So now you get plenty of time to think about your answer.
If
you're just honest, go through.
You might be, let's say we're working at BA
Right, I mean,
Systems, all three
The
of us.
person I was talking about earlier this week, I truly think in this circumstance,
You guys are doing
she didn't
different
realize the
jobs,
impact of the
different
career she chose,
hours,
which
but your
changed the whole.
benefits are exactly the same.
You work for the same company.
By the circumstance, she minimized
And
the
you come to our
circumstance.
company Christmas party.
That's right.
You come
and
to
then you meet each other because
You're
you don't
still-
ever.
yeah, like I don't
might
know
be-
you.
I've had people that
About
are
the
out on
circumstance,
contract
and she had
by
discussed it with us. We would,
Yeah.
And the only time they see people,
but because we didn't know the
are
circumstance,
at
beyond
social
Company
events
functions.
and company functions.
Absolutely, I've had those guys too.
And we can't ask a lot
Yeah,
of
good luck.
questions until you start.
yeah.
And so we're depending on you to do your paperwork to answer all of your interview questions to the best of your ability. I mean, for mine, they were like, they're one of the most honest people I know.
That's good.
It's always like,
Honestly.
when they're asking me this question, like my head's spinning and I'm thinking about this, and like, no, that doesn't count. It's like, okay. But you throw it out there and have a conversation with
I mean,
people.
honestly, if I were investigating you and I found that, I would love it. I would actually, I would
these pretty intrusive.
probably look at your age first. I mean, just out of curiosity, because well, I mean, we're the same age, so I'm in that same place where I've had to jump into social media because of business. But for what I do for a living, I would never.
I don't either. I got into it only to do what I call passive surveillance
Like I
of my
totally
children in
have to
college.
do.
But
Because I don't do it.
I don't do it. I don't tweet. I don't do Instagram. I don't do Snapchat. I only get on Facebook because of like I know that an event I'm going to, and I have to get on there to do a reading or something. But I don't post. You know what?
But what
Instead,
happened?
Skype with them on their computer. Talk to them.
The problem,
FaceTime. Do that. It's so
I
much
had
better.
this girl. Okay, I had this girl, and she was going for her clearance, and she was like a good. I mean, she was just great student, all this kind of stuff. But to look at her Facebook, which was pretty bland, but then to look at the people she associated with. There were some pretty crazy stuff going on, and then I just said, well, she's careful with her Facebook, but you know, she's doing some stuff these kids are doing.
Go on tournaments, and even my friends that have Facebook, they're not allowed to put their name.
I do that when I'm at conferences.
If you don't post pictures, it's fine, but you're not allowed to put my name.
I'm very sensitive about that too. Yeah. That's right.
And people are like, oh, Tabitha, you're so silly. You know, you care about this stuff too much. And I'm like, I've seen horror stories. Is what I've seen.
They interviewed at E, and there was like a sheet they gave me to put like all your social media stuff on.
Yeah.
And I had nothing on there.
And they were like,
Gave it back to me. And I
are you
said,
sure?
"Yeah, I don't have any of that." And then she looked at me and she goes, what do you mean?
Like I said, I've never done
I said, I don't do that.
I don't have any.
I would love you. I would love you.
Because now it's so much harder when you think about.
Very much my husband in a nutshell. He's exactly the same.
How much easier it was like 20 years ago when you didn't have to check out all these things. Doing
If I wanted to know you, I had to like send you a
you have
letter.
to actually talk.
I had to call you on the phone.
It's funny, like my friends, oh, did you see so-and-so? Like one of my friends was like, she won a tournament a couple years ago. Oh, yeah, you know, Tiffany won this tournament.
Oh no, I didn't see that.
So, yeah, for me, you don't have to.
Well, you know
Yeah,
what?
that's right, because I actually talked to them.
A good thing. A lot of soror. One of my daughter's, one of her best friends went to Tech. She was in a sorority, you know, and they were party, but the sorority and fraternities. If kids' pictures were ever seen on like Facebook or anything holding alcohol when they were underage, they would get booted out of the sororities and the fraternities. So that kept them from posting
I like that.
a lot of
See, I
stuff
like
on
that.
social media, which I like too. Because her friend one time she said, "Oh my God, I'm in this photo and I'm holding a Solo cup." But she's not a drinker, but you don't know that. And typically, red Solo cup, big beer, you know. But you know, she was so worried that one picture would get her in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing.
Which is good, and I just think a lot of young people, they don't even
Makes them more simple,
contemplate
right? And at least they get more sensitive.
I have a niece that lives in Barcelona, and she, a lot of
It's
times,
interesting.
I have an app on my phone that I will text her, because I can't really text her without this app. But she, anytime that you all profile that my niece that lives here talks to her on, and I tell her, I'm like, you better be careful what you put on there, because everybody can see it. Well, no, I mean, like, when you get older, you see it. No.
You know what you should do? Because I have a lot of foreign friends because of all my travels around. I communicate with them on Messenger.
Well,
Because it's private
we tried
and it works. Because I messenger people in Norway, Canada.
Oh, she
on
can.
their phone, I guess the kind of phone they have.
Oh, they can't get Facebook Messenger.
They can't get through their
They use
Facebook.
You use WhatsApp.
See, I don't do Facebook.
No, but you don't have to open Facebook, but you can.
Yeah, but WhatsApp is the same as Facebook Messenger.
Yeah, but
WhatsApp is secure and it's encrypted.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah, but neither does. I use Messenger.
I never tried it.
I like it. That's what I started using. Because it's private and it works worldwide.
I love WhatsApp. I travel to the Middle East a lot, and I live on WhatsApp.
Yeah, her grandparents
Not exciting at all.
And then they have me.
I
They keep bugging me to go over there.
You should. Oh, you should. It's beautiful.
Well, I would love it. I just would have to.
It was nice. Well, thanks for coming. You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
So I've got the, I've been
So you come in on the 12th and or the 6th rather?
No, because Bob is having surgery. All right. I mean, he's on the mend, and thank goodness yesterday they gave him the clearance for surgery. So I'm happy with that. And we'll keep moving forward. But yeah, I'm gonna ask her Friday. You know, Brigida. Have you met her? Brigida Trevino. She's a new board member.
I'm sure I have.
She's on my committee. She's on my committee. So you're on the committee. Your name is on my committee. College to career.
Okay.
But
Well, I'm a member at large. I can do it.
that's fine. So but I still have your name in there. I mean, I put it in my meeting notes. I'm asking her to speak on my points at the board meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And, so I'm going to meet her Friday to tell her what I need. And then I'm leaving, and I'll be back on the 4th. And then Bob's prep, and then surgery is on the 6th, whatever Wednesday is. So I'm like, I'm trying to get everything in. I've taken in 2 new customers that I thought were going to be pretty straightforward. And within the first few meetings, they were so impressed that they hired me for like 2 more things. And so they expanded my scope. No joke, 2/3. And I could work for them all year and be 40 hours a week. And I told them, I said, I have 8 other customers. You can't do it. Yeah, and you can't just say a day before, oh, we're going to have a 9 o'clock meeting. I'm like,
Yeah, you can't plan that.
I set my meetings as a week or 2 in advance. And I said, I know this project is very time sensitive. I go, but again, you can't just say, and they're a big company. So again, they have all their people, and they're like, oh, well, we can have a meeting like that. We're all here. And I'm like, well, I can't do that. I can't do that. So, and so they're coming around.
Yeah, that's hard. That's tough.
They're like, oh, the consultant is here. It's like, yeah. Consultant me.
well, and it's
Want to pay me, you're paying me. But at the same time, you're not my only customer. So,
See if I can grab a good.
me too.
I'm just going to leave my jacket on the table.
The nature of the termination of the employment was that I was no longer medically qualified. In a nutshell, I had a bad experience. And I was able to function at the level of the firefighter anymore. I would so that was the nature of my termination.
That's what you put on. You give it explanation.
But anyway, just in short, so you mentioned that you do like right now some business work, and I personally have like a business
I don't know how long.
like, is there any way I can help make it work?
well, I'm sure there is.
I actually shot
I
your request.
recently was an account.
Oh, did you? Okay. All right. I will go back. I was looking at let me keep you. Let me keep you.
So digital, you know? Yeah, totally.
So I
Dude, but we
switched to double major with ISOM as my
are
primary.
always looking
And accounting is my secondary because I
so I'll be honest.
trying to figure out where to go at this point. I'm working semesters out and graduating.
One of the big things that
Reset my
Right.
understanding.
you know what is your network because
I know this is a very broad kind of question,
developers
but
typically
do you hire ISOM? I understand that
Right.
primarily.
Exactly. It's a
yeah, it's a lot of our DP folks are in director kind of roles.
studying to get my
Now, a lot of
finish my
times we
financial
also
stuff.
need those.
Sure.
So like what I actually do is like, I can like explain my network.
You're going to
It's
be
not
IT.
just to, like give people who are government. It's also the business.
IT.
It doesn't matter like which. So
No, but yeah, so we, I mean, and we'll bring folks in, it's like, hey, I've got a real interest in that, and we get to know a couple of folks, and get some contact, and see that maybe not incredibly, but at least very, it's like, okay, let's go, and you might say, and it's like, okay, let's go and do that. Let them go and build their skill set, bring some, I've been advised those relationships that we know, and
If we look at just
because
my,
what I do is I'll push on the side like just shoot
okay,
so they're really
it would be overall. My accounting is
strapping
not competitive.
You gotta be very wise on which ones are hard. So a lot of them fail.
oh yeah. I was, like I said, I was the third guy in the company. They actually,
They're going to get a chance.
but yeah, there's a lot of. So I was off doing.
This is the only